Welcome to Wired to Hunt's Whitetail How-Tos, where we provide a step-by-step tutorial for one important deer hunting task.
What is a staging area and how do you identify one? Staging area is one of those terms we throw around all the time, like bedding areas, destination food sources, but it seems like there's a little bit less understanding about what a staging area is. Essentially, it's just a spot between bedding and food, or food and bedding, depending on morning or evening, where those bucks feel comfortable. And they know that hunting pressure is going to be centered around the openings. It's going to be centered around the food sources and the places with good visibility. They tend to back up in the cover and they use these spots to their advantage. And these are important places to find because they're often the best bet for getting deer that have experienced some pressure and they're saying, I'm not going to go out and risk my neck walking out in the open anymore. It's not the rut yet. It's not worth it. Just think about it like a security spot that he might not be bedded in, but he's going to stay in this sort of sanctuary spot. And I find these all the time when I go looking at how does the terrain work? How are the thermals going to work for him? And if you're in a place where there's a lot of up and down to your terrain, they use the high ground a lot. He can look down and see where he's heading. He can use the wind to travel down this ridge to get here. And so he's got almost a foolproof spot as far as not bumping into any predators, and he's really relying on his nose and his eyes and the position of the terrain to not get into danger. So you'll see a ridge top like I'm on right now, and maybe off in the distance you can see a green alfalfa field or maybe a clear cut or a cornfield. And you'll look around and you'll see what I call cluster rubs. This is not a rub line. This is a place where there's just a bunch of different rubs, a bunch of different brush that's really tore up. If it's in the good cover like this, that deer probably did that in the daylight. 10, 15, 20 minutes before last light, they'll get up out of those beds and maybe work 100, 200, 300 yards through this timber, and they'll stop in a place that they can just survey the whole scene. In some situations, they're watching the little bucks and the does, probably listening to see if anybody's gonna snort, and they're just waiting to just get the all clear to go out at dark. Or to reverse it in the morning, they get off of those food sources before first light. They don't just march right back and go to bed a lot of times. They'll hit up some of these places on the way back to bed, mess around a little bit, but they're not hanging out in the open. When you learn to identify these, if you spend a lot of time on pressured ground, these staging areas can really play into a season-long hunting strategy. They really matter in October when the rut hasn't kicked in yet. And then a lot of times you'll see these come back into play hard during the rut where these bucks just know this is my safe spot. So I might bring a doe up here, or I'm just more comfortable spending time here. Look around for these staging areas, learn how to identify them, and you'll become a better hunter. You'll also become a better hunter if you listen to the Wired to Hunt podcast or the Wired to Hunt Foundation's podcast, which you can find anywhere you can find podcasts.